Hello, 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 hello. Welcome everyone to this introduction to your recertification program for DaVinci Resolve 17, for the beginner's guide for DaVinci Resolve 17, I should say. Welcome, my name is Chris Roberts. Hopefully some of you we may have met in person. If you do, that's great. If not, hopefully before too long we shall meet in person. But I've been asked to give you a sort of a guided walkthrough of some of the new features for the upcoming release of the beginner's guide to DaVinci Resolve 17, which is great. And I can officially say now that this book has been approved and will be available before too long. I was just told by Patty this morning that starting yesterday they were working on the index, and so the book will be available for people to download and for us to officially teach, hopefully in the next few days. So that is fantastic. So fantastic news. It's been a bit of a bit of a roller coaster working on this over the last few months, and I appreciate that you guys have had the patience to actually stick with us during that time as well, because Resolve 17 has been out of public beta now for quite a while, really. So it feels as though we're playing a little bit of catch up in terms of the training, but hopefully we've got good things coming for you guys, so that's great. Hopefully Patty will be on this call with us a little bit later on in the session. She's scheduled us up to 5 hours, but I'm hoping that we won't need the 5 hours. But I'm actually based over here in the UK, so I'm doing this. It's late afternoon here. You can probably see from the clock on my screen share. It's a little after 4 in the afternoon. So you'll probably see as the session sort of wears on that the light will get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. So that's a good cue for me to make sure that we're not too late with this. But I'm sure that you guys will find this all very straightforward. So looking forward to it. As always, with these things, we're doing this in a webinar format. So I'm actually joined by Sherwin Lau, who, again, I think a number of you have probably already come across. And I don't know if Sherwin, are you there? Can you say hello to everyone for me?
Hey everyone, how's it
There
going?
you go.
Well,
You see, he is a real person, so that's good.
or am I?
Hmm. Maybe he is the DaVinci Resolve neural engine, just
I
given
am.
personification. Maybe. There we go. We'll let the conspiracy theories hang on that one. But Sherwin is he's my wingman on this. So he's going to be there in the background. If anyone has got any questions, what I'd like you to do is put those in the Q&A section of the Zoom interface, if you wouldn't mind. So any questions relating to sort of, our official topic of the beginner's guide to DaVinci Resolve 17 would be great. If you just want to sort of, shoot the breeze with other people and, sort of swap war stories and things like that, then please use the chat. The chat window is sort of free for all, for everyone to use and to sort of swap and, sort of pass comment and that sort of thing. And so yeah. Anything official, please use the Q&A. What Sherwin will do is he'll try and keep on top of that and answer any of those questions that need answering whilst I witter away here. And if there is anything, maybe several people have got particular questions or something like that, and we might need to just spend a few minutes just running over that. Then usually what Sherwin does is he sort of interrupts, he shouts in, and then what we do is we spend a few minutes addressing that. So that's the plan anyway, to how this works. We will have a Q&A sort of open time towards the end of the session. So if there is anything that then suddenly occurs to you later on, what we can do is just spend a little bit of time just sort of addressing that. It is obviously text based rather than being able to open up microphones, unfortunately. It's just the way these things have been set up. Okay, so that is the plan. for the next few hours. So hopefully you can all sort of sit back and enjoy the ride. So first of all, I'm just going to show you this because I think we're really quite proud of these covers, amongst other things. So of course here we are talking about the beginner's guide, the introductory course to DaVinci Resolve 17, which you'll see is actually on the left hand of those the series of books there. Sherwin has given us a nice little gold star. There we go. It appears there as well next to that. That's of course where we are, and Dion has done a great job in revising what the previous course was, which again you'll all be familiar anyway for Resolve 16, and updating it for Resolve 17. So yeah, that's where we're starting. But you can also see we've got the colorist guide, the editor's guide, the Fairlight audio, and the visual effects guides to DaVinci Resolve 17, all nicely colourful, with lots of wonderfully good-looking people sitting at various consoles and operating the software. So yeah, fantastic. I'd just like to point out as well that we do actually have the editor's guide to DaVinci Resolve 17. Some of you may be aware that that was the only version of the various books that didn't make it for a revised version for Resolve 16, but that is now fully revised for DaVinci Resolve 17. So the beginner's guide has been approved. It will be available ASAP, both on the website and via Amazon if you want a hard copy version of it. But the PDFs will be available for free as they have been on the website for the last year or so. And then the other books will start to trickle through as and when they are ready. But people have been hard at work behind the scenes on all of this, so so hopefully you'll see a lot of good stuff coming through over the next few weeks, maybe a couple of months or so at the outside, I hope. Along with the book, and you've been sent a link to download the book. It's been sent as a beta copy, so it doesn't have an index, basically. So that's the thing that the team are currently working on now. They're going to put together the index and then make the book officially available. But if you never use the index, then you've got no reason to worry about that. So the book you've got is pretty much the book that will be released. It's all sorted and all done. So the only outstanding thing is the index on that. And also there is an end user certification exam also now available for this. So this is the bit.ly link for your end user certification. So this is what, of course, you would use for your students. This is the link that will be available on the website as well for anyone to take the certification exam through Brillium, which you guys all know about anyway, but this is the updated link for that. So you can share that with your students. You can, people can start taking it now, as far as I'm aware. No problems at all with that. And as well, from a trainer's point of view, I always like to encourage trainers to take the end user certification exam. Not so much because it's a requirement. It's not a requirement for trainers to pass the exam. But, if it's something that you're asking your students to do, then why not do it ourselves? So it also gives us a good idea as to sort of the level that's expected of students for that exam as well. So I'll just leave that up there for a second, just whilst people might be doing screenshots or, sort of scribbling that down or sticking it into a browser and starting the process straight away. The end user exam is kind of been standardized over the last year or so as well. So all end user exams are 60 minutes in duration. You get asked 50 questions with a passing grade of 85%. So again, very, very similar to what it has been previously. You do have, or your students will have, 3 attempts to pass that exam. If, of course, they don't, then they could probably just use a separate email address in order, in order to register again. But what we do say now is that If you do need a retake for any reason, then there is a 24-hour wait period between each attempt. So once you finish one, you have to wait a full 24 hours before you can reattempt it. So that's just something to bear in mind that's been introduced in the last few months, I think, on that. So 60 minutes, 50 questions, passing grade of 85%. So what about this actual course itself? Well, if you've been familiar with the Resolve 16 Beginner's Guide, then a lot of what we will go through is going to be familiar with you. It's not been it's not been completely revised. You haven't necessarily got whole new sets of media. We do have new media, but we don't have whole new sets of media. I'll actually take you through the course breakdown in a second, but just in terms of summarizing the course consists of 15 hands-on lessons. And actually, I've been teaching this class, and I know Dion's been teaching the class as well over the last few months, whilst we've been developing it and getting it bedded in. And actually, I've been delivering the course over Zoom like this to a number of people. And generally, what we've been doing is we've been delivering it in 4-hour blocks. That will include a break. So within those 4 hours, we would do a number of lessons. And what we've been doing is we've been delivering those Monday through Friday at 4 hours a day. And we found that that kind of works quite well. Also, I found that in terms of delivering the content of the class, that 5 by 4 hours is a good period of time that you can explore the topic a little bit more rather than trying to rush through it. So if you do the math, you've got around about 20 hours of training material there. So if you are going to deliver this remotely, given the coronavirus situation, then that's probably a sort of a good guide, 20 hours. In terms of delivering this face to face, hopefully we'll get back to that point in the not too distant future. And so again, we're probably looking at around about a full 3-day training course for a commercial training partner. So if you are doing face-to-face training and you want to use this, then that again is, I think, a good guide for that. And obviously, if you want to incorporate this into any schools, so if you want to teach it alongside any other sort of education that you're doing with regards to post-production training, then again, obviously, you can look at how that breaks down. But again, around about 20 hours, I think, is a good figure to have in mind there. As always, it's a hands-on course and it is a project-based course. So you all understand that your students should be actually doing things with Resolve. And it's also worth pointing out that, as with the previous classes for the beginner's guides, or as it was the introductory guide to DaVinci Resolve, it actually covers elements of editing, color, Fairlight and Fusion. And in actual fact, something to note about this book is that throughout the lessons, there is at least one lesson that covers each Resolve page. So there is a lesson on the media page, there is a lesson on the cut page, there is a lesson on Fairlight, Fusion, delivery, and so forth. So I think that's definitely worth bearing that in mind. So it does at least try and cover all of the individual pages inside Resolve 17. This is how the course breaks down, and I'm really sorry to present something like this to you. I thought, what's the best way of actually giving a breakdown of the course? And really to kind of make sense of it, I really needed to present it all on one slide. I felt kind of breaking it up didn't really help me very much in terms of being able to present it to you. So I do apologize about this. hopefully, hopefully it's very, very straightforward. What we have here in the left column is we've got the lesson number, so that appears in the book, or the chapter number that appears in the book. The middle is the actual title of that chapter. So you can see lesson 1 is high speed editing on the cut page. Lesson 2 is edit page quick start. And then on the right hand side, the final column, what I've actually done is I've actually broken it down to the page that you use for that lesson. So hopefully you can see that the first few lessons are dealing primarily in the cut, the media, and the edit page. When we get to lesson 8, lesson 8 is the lesson where we do markers, put markers in, and do all of the syncing of the sound effects and mixing audio levels for airplanes on the edit page. What we then traditionally did in the previous classes is we then took that a step further and started to work in Fairlight. Well, as you can see, there's actually been a little bit of a change in terms of the overall structure of the class from lesson 9 onwards, because you can see that what we've actually got is we've actually got the color section in there. So we've got 3 lessons on color directly after the majority of the edit pages, and I'll come back to this in a second. Thank you, Sherwin. Yes, you can see that those sections there are the color page. So this would have been sort of traditionally after the Fusion page, I seem to remember. Yes, so we would do Fairlight, then we would do Fusion, then we would do color. And what we've done is we've just taken the color section and just brought it up. After you've done the color section, then we then go back and we look at Fairlight, we look at Fusion, and then we end up by the deliver page and media management, which we take the wrap up of the course with. So that's the overall structure of the class. There's also been changes at the top of the course as well. Lessons 1 and 2, you'll notice, are very different. Previously, what we had for lesson 1 and 2 is actually had 2 cut page lessons. Well, that's actually now been replaced by a single lesson in the cut page, but also a lesson, lesson 2, which is the edit page quick start. And we'll talk about that specifically as well, because I think for those of you who might have not been familiar with earlier versions of the beginner's guide for Resolve 15 and earlier, this is something new. But for those of us who have actually been involved in the training program for a little longer, we'll recognize this lesson. So I'll touch on that for a second. Now, I've only been given a few hours in order to run through this with you. But what I wanted to do is actually to try and use that time to the best that we can sort of benefit from it. So I don't want to go through every single one of these lessons, but what I do want to do is, you can see that I've just highlighted some of the things that I would like to draw your attention to. So these are the lessons that we're going to sort of spend a bit of time. I'm going to delve into. I'm going to find, sort of address certain features, maybe certain things that are in the book, something that I found that I may find maybe doesn't work quite as I expect it to, or other feedback that I've received, both in terms of delivering this to trainers over the last few weeks as well. So we are going to look at lesson 1, which is high-speed editing on the cut page. We're also going to look at the new edit page quick start as well. There's something in the applying transitions and effects which we will touch on. I want to draw your attention to that. Also things in primary color correction and the creating looks lessons as well. The visual effects in Fusion has been completely rewritten for this version of the book. Well, I say completely rewritten. It's not the sort of the kind of, do 3 different exercises in Fusion, but again we'll spend a bit of time talking about that as well. And then the other thing just towards the end there is lesson 15. We're just going to touch on the media and database management side of things just at the end there. But these are the areas that I'd like to concentrate on, because there's been some changes both in terms of the software, more importantly in terms of the actual training course and the sorts of things that we would be aiming to deliver with that. The one thing about this, though, this layout for the new course, one of the things that struck me was when we looked at rejigging the order of the lessons, was that effectively what we've got is, I believe, lessons 2 through lesson 11 is what I would refer to as the core of the class. So what I mean by that is that if people who I've encountered over the last few years who come to DaVinci Resolve training, what do they really want to know about? What are the things that we want them to be able to go away and work with extreme confidence? And I think generally it's about that sort of management of projects, understanding how to get stuff in, understanding how to cut it together, and then understanding the color grading. And actually, the color grading is, you know, the one thing that most people want to know about with DaVinci Resolve anyway. So it makes sense to actually not to leave that till later, but actually to bring it up the higher in the order, the running order of things for this course. That's not to say that everything outside of that red box is a lesser lesson, not as important. It is, because it is a beginner's guide, so you know it's trying to touch on all elements of it. So I think it's important that people do understand where the cut page sits in terms of the software, where Fairlight sits, where Fusion sits as well. If for nothing else, then it actually gives people the confidence to be able to say, okay, I actually understand that I can go into the Fusion page and I can do this basic thing before coming out of it. So if for nothing else, it's a bit of a confidence thing more than anything. So I'm not saying that, you know, beyond those 10 lessons that, you know, you should ignore everything else. You shouldn't. But to me, it makes much more sense that the core of this, which starts at lesson 2 and runs through lesson 11, is the sort of the main focus, I think, for a lot of my students over the years. You might have completely different opinions, and that's absolutely fine as well. No problem at all. So, as well as that, with that in mind, I should say, one of the things that that's kind of, how to put this delicately, that's sort of almost delayed the process of getting this course to you, is actually struggling with the first lesson, if I'm being honest. The high-speed editing on the cut page. We went through several iterations of this, it actually required sort of sitting with Grant on Skype calls and you know, sort of trying to work out, you know, exactly where his vision was for the cut page and how it should be used. So what we've done is we've actually presented it in the order in which he wanted it, so that if somebody, not one of your students, but if just, you know, some random on the internet comes across the book and actually downloads it, then the natural place for them to start might be the cut page. However, one of the things that I think is interesting about the cut page is that it actually does things in a it actually does some very complex things in a very straightforward manner. It's very uh, it's how to put this. It does a lot of complex things, and it, with just sort of one keystroke or something like that, you think, oh, that's fine. But you only really understand and really appreciate what it's doing once you actually understand the overall workflow within the application as well. So here's something else. The way I've been presenting this class, I actually place the high-speed editing on the cut page lesson at the end. And there's a variety of reasons that I do that, and hopefully throughout this session I'm going to share this with you. This means that my starting lesson is lesson 2, which is a little bit weird for a lot of students. So in the keynote, what I tend to do is the keynote that I use to sort of summarize the lessons. I haven't done them for this class because you guys understand hopefully where I'm coming from with this. I actually take the lesson number out. And once you've gone beyond sort of lessons 2, 3, and 4, you generally don't need to be too worried about the lesson numbers. But it is a bit of a strange one, I have to say, when I'm standing in front of a group of people and I say, right, first lesson is lesson 2. So very, very strange there. But I actually find that when I'm delivering, or when I have delivered the cut page as the first lesson, sometimes, what it does and the way it works and things like that isn't immediately obvious. And so sometimes it actually leaves more questions than it answers. So I've left it to the end, and I actually have taught it in previous versions as well. I've tended to teach it after the editing pages. So previously it would have been, I think normally I would do it after the Fairlight page and before the Fusion page in previous versions of this class. But I've actually taken to delivering that lesson at the very end. For a couple of reasons. First of all, it's one of those lessons that in order to benefit and actually understand where the cut page is coming from, it needs to be done quickly. And again, I'll address this as we get to it. So it needs to be done quickly. And it's also a good sort of, a way of dropping the curtain on the whole training course. If you look at their lessons 14 and 15 at the end of your training course, the deliver page, and then you talk about media and database management. It's not exactly the sort of topic that sets people on fire so that they leave your classroom feeling as though they've got something, it's got a fire in the belly here for using DaVinci Resolve. Whereas something practical, something fun, something that actually brings together a lot of sort of strands that we've talked about through that main part of the course does actually, I think, give us much more of a sense of closure to the training course rather than talking about media and database management, even though it's, of course, an incredibly important part of what we need to do. So I'm not sort of standing in front of you here across Zoom and saying this is the way you should teach it. What I am doing is just sort of sharing my thoughts and the way that I've been delivering this material and what I feel works for what we're doing. If you feel as well that actually, you could, the entire class could benefit from a little bit of a reorder based on the material that you're teaching to your student, then please feel free, go for it. I mean, there should be no reason why, for example, we can't teach media and database management, maybe in the middle of the course before we start talking about color, because it's a nice sort of change of pace with things, or maybe before Fairlight. So, feel free to sort of play around with the order. Whatever would work for your students is more important than what's actually written in terms of the order of the book, if that makes sense. So yeah, if you feel as though high-speed editing on the cut page should be lesson 1, teach it as lesson 1.